What it do, flight crew? FTC. Flight team stand up! It's June!
June 2021 has come to a close, and with that, we've seen Flight upload his first IRL basketball videos of the year. Because of this, I thought it would be right to go over how Flight played in each of his IRL basketball games in 2021, and to see if he has gotten any better or worse from June of last year in this two-part series. Today, we're going to be talking about each of Flight's games in 2021, and in the next video, we're going to be comparing them to see if June Flight 2021 is better than June Flight 2020. So sit back, grab a snack, give that like button a smack, and let's get straight into the video. Now we're going to start by talking about Flight versus Jesser. One, because it was the first game that happened, but two, because it gives me the most positive things to say. In this game, Flight shot 5 for 21 from the field and 3 for 11 from 3, which adds up to around 23.8% and 27.3% respectively, with 2 air balls. And to make matters worse, at halftime, Jesser was up 7-1. But in the last few minutes, Flight heated up, which led to him losing 11-8. Jesser shot 8 for 18 from the field and 3 for 7 from 3, which makes about 44.4% and 42.8% with 1 air ball. And when you factor in Jesser's 2 blocks, it's obvious who the stats favored. Now let's take a look at the shot charts for this game. And yes, I have a shot chart for both Flight and the person he played in each game. Now, taking a look at Jesser's shot chart, you can see a very balanced game plan from mid-range, from the 3, and from the paint. While in Flight's shot chart, it's obvious he likes to take shots from the right wing, top of the key, and in this mid-range area on the right-hand side. It's also obvious that he doesn't like to go left, which is crazy because that's where he shot the best from the field in this game. But a lot of these tendencies are going to be highlighted throughout the rest of the video, so stay tuned for that. But the main takeaways I got from this first game are, number 1, Flight's stamina looked a lot better this year than it did last year. Number 2, Flight got hot at the end of the game, so it would be interesting to see if this was a fluke or if this is just the new Flight. And then number 3, Flight's defense and driving definitely still needs a lot of work. Now the next game versus Frank Michael Smith, an NBA basketball TikToker, or as Flight called him, a D2 basketball player. And let's just say, there's a lot less positive to say about this game. In this game, Flight shot 3 for 18 from the field, which gives him a percentage of 16.7, and he shot 2 for 9 from 3, which is 22.2%, with 4 air balls from the exact same spot. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to. Flight also started this game being down 7-1 at halftime, so maybe there's just a halftime curse that we don't know about. Flight ended up making 2 more threes to bring the final score to 12-5. Frank shot 8 for 24 from the field and 4 for 10 from 3, which is 33.3% from the field and 40% from the 3 with 1 air ball. Now this game was at R2 Balls Court, so no shots were taken from the top of the key, and most of the threes were taken from the wing. It was very obvious that Frank was very comfortable with this left wing area, and Flight kept trying to shoot threes from the right wing area. The biggest difference was Frank shot 40% and Flight shot around 20%. Flight basically refused to step up on Frank's threes until it was near the end of the game. Flight also couldn't hit any of his layups, floaters. He only had 1 mid-range jump shot, which was from that right wing area. So I'm confused on if Flight thinks that this is his hot spot, because that's the only hot spot I've ever seen in my life where you shoot more air balls than threes. Flight did use his height as an advantage in the paint though on defense, or he at least tried to anyway. He did force a good amount of stops in the paint, but at times it was obvious he didn't know what he was doing down there. And now for the final game. This one was easily the hardest one to watch. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Flight shot 3 for 29 from the field, which is 10.3%, and 2 for 12 from 3, which is 16.7%. And he got 1 block and he shot 2 more air balls. If I'm just going to be honest, Flight looked bad out there. Defensively, Flight just kept getting exposed over and over and over again. And it was very similar to his last game against Cheese, if I'm being honest. And again, just like in the last 2 games, Flight went down 7-1 at halftime. There might just be a 7-1 halftime curse involving Flight. I'm not sure, but this is 3 games in a row he's been down 7-1 at halftime. Now Cheese didn't play very well himself, but he did just enough to get the win, shooting 10 for 38 from the field, which is 26.3%, and 1 for 15 from 3, which is 6.7%. He also had 1 block, but he didn't airball throughout the game. And Cheese was struggling out there. Flight eventually realized that Cheese couldn't shoot. He can't hit threes, so you can just sit back on Cheese and let him keep shooting them. And Cheese would keep on shooting them. He shot 15 and only hit 1 of them. But as soon as Cheese started attacking the basket again and again and again, it took a lot of shots and his numbers don't look great, but he ended up pulling out the win. And before we get into the full shot chart for Flight in June 2021, we have to go over a few important stats. Flight in these 1v1s shot 11 for 68 from the field, which is 16.2%, and 7 for 33 from 3, which is 21.2%. Just for some context on how bad this is, the worst NBA career field goal percentage was 27.2%, held by John Mankin, who retired from the NBA in 1953. And since we went over the percentages for Flight, we might as well go over the percentages of the players that he played throughout June. Frank, Cheese, and Jesser in their games against Flight shot 26 for 80 from the field, which adds up to 32.5%, and they shot 8 for 32 from 3, which is 25%. Now, while these stats look bad, I do want to give both Jesser and Frank some credit, because without Cheese, they shot 7 for 17 from 3, which is 41.2%, and 16 for 42 from the field, which is 38.1%. So the Cheese game kinda makes their stats look a lot worse than they actually are, especially from 3. Now, there are two other important stats that I decided to keep track of for both Flight and the people that he played, and that is blocks per game and air balls per game. Now, Flight had 2 blocks in these 3 games, which adds up to around 0.7 blocks per game, so under 1 block per game. And he had 8 air balls throughout these 3 games, which means that he averaged 2.7 air balls per game in the month of June. The people who Flight played, on the other hand, had 3 blocks in total, which means they averaged about 1 block per game, and they had 2 air balls total in those 3 games, which means that they averaged 0.7 air balls per game. Flight averages 2 more air balls per game than his opponents in June. Now, the last stat that I want you guys to look at before we look at the shot charts is Flight's points per game. Now, Flight averaged 6 points per game in these 1v1s, and honestly, for him losing all 3 of the 1v1s, this isn't terrible, but just based on the people who he played, Cheese isn't that good, Frank isn't that good. The Jesser game was impressive, but then he underperformed in the other 2, which rounds it out at 6. And now I know what you all have been waiting for, so let's go ahead and get straight into it. This is Flight's shot chart for the month of June in 1v1s. Now, on the left side we have Flight's shot chart, and on the right side we have the people who Flight played, Jesser, Frank, and Cheese. We have all of their shot charts right here with their field goal percentages, 3-point percentages, all that stuff. But that's going to do it for this video. Like I said in the beginning, in my next video I'm going to be comparing June Flight 2020 versus June Flight 2021 to see who is the best based on shot chart, stats, eye test, all of that stuff. So if you guys did enjoy this video and don't want to miss the next one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can know exactly when it comes out. But anyways guys, I will see you all next time.